Hello, this is Mike P from RoadTrailRun, and today I'll be bringing you a full review of the Salomon Genesis in comparison with the S-Lab Genesis. Is the Genesis purely a budget version of the S-Lab Genesis? We're going to talk about that a little bit, but first let's take a look at some of the specs. Stack height is listed at 30 millimeters under the heel, 22 millimeters under the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. Foam is Salomon's Energy Foam, which is the same in the S-Lab version. In my US size 9.5, the Genesis weighs in at 9.8 ounces, that's 278 grams. In comparison to my S-Lab Genesis in the same US 9.5, that one weighs 9.2 ounces, 262 grams. That's a difference of 0.6 ounces and 16 grams. The Genesis is available now and retails for $150. That's a $50 discount from the S-Lab version, which retails for $200. First off, I'm going to get into the fit and first impressions. Now, I've got both of these shoes in hand. I'm going to be going back and forth, pointing out differences between the two. Let's start off with the upper here. In the regular Genesis, we have the same matrix upper as in the S-Lab version. High durability. Matrix uppers are just great. I love them. I find I could get a solid wrap around the foot without as much lace tension as I would normally need with typical uppers. In terms of the fit, I have a US 9.5 in both of these shoes. In our written review, some of my colleagues at RoadTrailRun noticed that there might have been equal space or perhaps a little bit more space in the regular version. I didn't find that to be the case. I find this to be slightly tighter in the toe box compared to the S-Lab version. Now, I was trying to figure out what was the reason for that. One of the differences, this has an Ortholite insole in here. The S-Lab has a traditional foam insole. It's quite thin. It's actually glued down, so I can't really pull it out for comparison, but I could kind of feel along the edge that it's quite thin. Again, Ortholite insoles, they're typically, this is the insole from the regular Genesis. They're typically on the thicker side. I'm not a big fan of Ortholite insoles. I think they just soak up a bit of water, give you artificial feeling of softness. In terms of the toe box volume, I kind of feel maybe the Ortholite insole plays a factor into that feeling a little bit tight. First run straight out of the box, I took them an hour and a half, and I did notice towards the end of the run on the pinky side, right about here, I noticed some bit of pressure. Again, I'm not sure if it's because I have 387 miles in my original S-Lab Genesis. Perhaps they're bedded in a little bit more than these newer Genesis that I received. That could be a factor. I'm not so certain. After a few more runs, I tended to notice that in the heel area, the padding is a little bit soft in the Genesis compared to the S-Lab version. The S-Lab has a quite minimal heel padding. There's some dedicated bolstering around the inside that wraps above the heel. Here in the regular Genesis, you have more traditional regular foam padding that wraps around. I find I get the heel seated deeper in the S-Lab version compared to the regular Genesis version. So I think my foot may be sitting a little further back, my heel perhaps a little deeper in the S-Lab version in comparison to this regular Genesis. So perhaps that might push my foot slightly forward in terms of having that little bit of pinky pressure on this side. I would still say overall it's a wide forefoot, very comfortable forefoot. I tended to gravitate towards running thinner socks in this regular Genesis compared to the S-Lab version. And I also, again, I have 387 miles in this version, so they're quite bedded down at this point. I don't think that's the determining factor in this toe box feeling a little bit wider, the S-Lab version that is. If I look at them side by side, perhaps you could see, just looking at them in front of me, the S-Lab does seem wider to me, and that's kind of the feeling that I do get on the run. It seems a little bit more comfortable. I could get away with a slightly thicker sock in the S-Lab version. Again, I have a lot of miles in this version right here, but I never experienced any other type of cramp feeling or any other rubbing anywhere in the toe box in the S-Lab, where this one was kind of noticeable on the first run and a little bit noticeable later on. even when I'm running and I'm looking down at my foot, the Genesis kind of looks like it's a little more tapered than the S-Lab version. I don't think it's a lot, but for me, it's a little bit of a difference. Like, I would be much more comfortable with the fit of the S-Lab in comparison to the Genesis for a very long distance or duration. So coming back to the upper, the Genesis has a regular gusseted tongue, whereas the S-Lab version has a full booty. So there's no gusset. The tongue is integrated fully into the upper with the S-Lab version. Here you have a fully gusseted tongue. It's more of a standard setup here. You have a traditional padding around the collar. The S-Lab version has a knit collar, which I find works really well. I've run this in a 70-mile, very highly technical race in Austria, Großglockner Ultra Trail, and I didn't wear a gaiter. It rained, crazy conditions during that race. In my long races for 100 miles, I typically wear a gaiter. For example, with a Tecton X, I always wear a gaiter if I'm racing. With this knit collar, I don't have to do that. That's one great feature that the S-Lab version has over the Genesis. With the Genesis, again, you have a traditional ankle and heel collar. The counter is semi-rigid. The heel, it's not super soft, but it's okay. It's more built for comfort versus the S-Lab, which is just meant to wrap around the heel. It really is more dialed in comparison to this. The heel area of this feels a little bit less volume due to that cushioning, and it definitely feels a little bit softer, a little bit more comfortable. Will probably be generally more comfortable for most runners. Getting down to the midsole, we have 30 millimeters under the heel, 22 millimeters under the forefoot, energy foam, same stack, same drop as the S-Lab version. The Genesis, the regular version, definitely softer underfoot. Quite good flexibility. It's pretty much, as you can see, an even flex. Not too much up by the toes. Good twisting. It's very soft, yet also very flexible. With the S-Lab version, I do tend to feel a little bit more flex around the midfoot area. This one feels more connected from the heel to the forefoot. It feels softer and also more connected. So in terms of ride, it tends to have a smoother, more cushioned feel, whereas the S-Lab version tends to have that all mountain. I like to think of trail shoes in terms of having a suspension. If I was thinking of the S-Lab version, I would call that an independent suspension. Whereas under the forefoot, if you can imagine these being your front wheels and the heel being your rear wheels, it just feels like you can really get around very easily in twisty and technical rocky terrain in the S-Lab version. This one, the front and the rear feels a little more connected. The ride to me feels a little bit smoother than the S-Lab, but you don't have that agility in very technical terrain that you would get with the S-Lab. So here I've got my S-Lab in hand. Again, you can see the flex is similar. These are well broken in, of course, but I don't know if you could tell here. I could kind of twist this a little bit easier around the midfoot. Now, I don't know if it's because they're broken in, but my sense on the run and throughout the time that I've been running on the shoes is that you get a little bit more flexibility in the middle of the shoe, which I think is just great in technical terrain. Now looking at these wings, one of the main features when this version just came out was these stability wings. You have this one on the medial side and you have this one on the lateral side. So that's a little bit for rock protection or also stability when you have that twisting and your foot is moving in technical terrain. The Genesis here has slightly varied versions, but the same idea with the wings. You have this wing on the lateral side, and then you have this one is more blended into the midsole on the medial side. In terms of feel, when I first tried these on, I tended to notice the top of the inner wing on the inside of my foot a little bit more than the S-Lab when I had them side by side. But on the run, they're not noticed at all. It's nothing that you would worry about your foot feeling constricted. I think it's a pretty good and interesting design, giving you some stability in more technical terrain. A lot of brands or other shoes I've seen, what they'll do is they'll put maybe a firmer medial post into the midsole or under that medial side, maybe under the arch of that foot, and that it works okay. The idea is to prevent you from maybe collapsing in, save some energy. But to me, I don't like the firmness of a post unless you truly need a stability shoe. The firmness of the post feels a little bit jarring, and it kind of breaks up the feel underfoot, like you're landing on one side, maybe on the lateral forefoot, maybe on your heel, and it feels nice and soft, and then you bam get to this kind of jarring post under the instep. The idea of these wings, you want to provide a similar effect of stability but without that jarring effect of a post, and I think it actually works better. The S-Lab is one of my favorite shoes in technical terrain. You get a nice uniform feel underfoot. It doesn't feel different under your heel on the medial side if they had a post in there. But these wings do kind of give you a little bit of stability from kind of the foot rolling either inward or outward. And they're kind of, as you can see, this wing on the, especially on the medial side, is integrated into the midsole foam. I don't know if this is exactly energy foam itself. It just works well. I think it's a great design for technical terrain. Hands down, it's better than any type of post that you have there. The outsole is Salomon's Contagrip. With the Genesis, we have 4.5 millimeter lugs. I believe that's the same depth as the S-Lab version. In this version, you get a little bit more coverage. There's a few more lugs. They're not as widely spaced as the S-Lab version. It gives a bit of a smoother feel underfoot, especially in firmer terrain. The S-Lab lugs are more spaced out. It's not a full cleat feel, but it does give good mountain traction. You can really dig in a little bit better with the S-Lab version, so that's a slight difference. I'll put these up two side by side here so you can see the difference. The S-Lab version, you could tell that's probably a bit more mountain oriented. This is probably a bit more versatile. Salomon claims this is their stickiest rubber to date. This one does feel quite soft. It feels a little bit softer than the S-Lab version. I wouldn't worry about durability or anything like that. I've got 387 miles in this S-Lab version, and I've reserved these for the most technical terrain. I don't take these out on any kind of easy trail, so this is all rough mileage in this shoe. And the outsole, you can see I've lost maybe a millimeter, maybe 2 or so. That's quite good value in terms of an outsole. Getting on to the ride of this shoe, how it performs out on the trail. Just a fabulous trail ride. Highly versatile. It leans more towards cushion than some of the other shoes I might have been testing recently. Very comfortable underfoot. I took these straight out of the box, an hour and a half, and they just felt great. Aside from that little pinky thing, in terms of ride, they felt amazing. Compared to the S-Lab version, it's a little bit smoother, definitely feel more cushioned. For the general trail runner, general trail usage, this is a great shoe. It could be a great trail racer for many. It could be a high mileage training shoe for most people. I mentioned how the S-Lab version has a little bit more flexibility around the midfoot. This shoe is still very good. It's no slouch in that department either. I had no issues with stability, security. I never felt like, even given the softness and given the stack height, I was ever in danger of rolling an ankle at all. I think that's just due to the flexibility of the shoe. Those wings must play a part in giving you that confidence that your foot is locked in and it's not going to roll in any type of rocky or technical terrain. At $150, this shoe is an amazing value. I would highly recommend this shoe for any trail runner, especially if you want a cushion feel on the trail, you like a flexible feel, you want a highly durable upper. This shoe checks all the boxes. For $50 more, the S-Lab version I think is also a great value. Again, I have 387 miles in my S-Lab version. I just bought another pair. Running Warehouse had a sale, $150. I got my second pair. I was keeping an eye out for the deal so I would have a fresh pair for this racing season. For $50 more, you get that knit collar. For me, on my foot, I think you get a little bit more spaciousness in the toe box. At the same 9.5, I would feel much more comfortable taking these for a long ultra distance. I'm actually considering racing these in a longer, more moderate, less mountainous race, but I may have to size up to a 10 if I wanted to take them for a longer distance. The cushiness and maybe the softness under the heel is kind of orienting my foot slightly forward where I'm getting that little pressure in the front. I think at a 10, it would be an amazing feel for me. The cushion would be a bigger advantage over maybe a longer, less mountainous type of race. $150, this is a great shoe. $200, this shoe is just as good. Salomon Genesis, you can't go wrong. I've been reviewing a string of great trail shoes recently, so I'm gonna put comps for the Genesis up on our written site. Jeff V has a full written review that's already posted. You have a comp in mind, something that I didn't think about, feel free to leave a question or comment. Thank you for watching.